it's in. Today, I want to talk about a post that I've written a few days ago that I feel that it's time to share not only with you guys, but with other men and women who listen to the show as well. And today's topic is this: will my wife forgive me for cheating? Now, this is a pretty loaded question. It can be a pretty basic question at the same time, because some people, the answer is, pretty direct. However, in a situation where you have spent most of your life with another person, another man, another woman, whatever the case may be, you have created a long journey and timeline of being with somebody that you've grown accustomed to, that you have learned intricate details about. And so when something like cheating or an affair happens, regardless of who did it, whether it be the man or the woman, it's always a devastating situation to go through. It's a devastating situation to figure it out. And we have to talk about eventually what cheating really is. Cheating is anything that you can do without your partner knowing. I want you to understand that anything that you do that you would not tell your partner is considered cheating. Cheating happens in many different forms. It happens financially. It can happen obviously physically. It is an emotional situation, an emotional affair. If it isn't physical, there's sexting, there's what's another form? There's being very flirtatious. Some people are out there, some people don't consider flirting cheating. I put it like this: if you have it in your heart, and I know it's in the Bible, excuse me from not finding the exact quote in scripture, but it is said that if a man lusts after any woman, even if it's in his own mind, then he is considered cheating on his wife. So paraphrasing, if you wanna find out where the quote is, maybe I can add it in the description or something like that, but it definitely speaks about that in the Bible. If you are even so much as thinking about it with another woman, you've already committed adultery in your relationship. I just thought that was something that we should put that out there, because in the world that we live in, it's so easy to get in touch with other people. It's so easy to, scroll down your timeline and find a picture of the girl shaking her ass on your phone or computer screen. And you're like, oh, you want to press the like button. Or same thing for women. They find guys, and it's funny, that guy, they don't click photos of guys, half naked guys, or whatever like that. Women fantasize about men in very odd ways, and I'm only saying that because I'm a guy myself. You're gonna scroll down some timelines on a female's, on a woman's phone, or on her computer or a tablet or whatever. You're gonna find guys working out, dressing up a certain kind of way. So women look at men a little bit different than men look at women, and that's natural because of who we are. But either way, to get back to the point of the podcast today, will my wife forgive me for cheating? So when you check out the blog post, and I'll put the description to the blog post down for you guys to click on, and you go to the website at tyrewilson.com, and you can read it. On this blog post, you have to understand that your wife or your prodigal spouse may not have it in her to forgive you for cheating. The sheer thoughts of the betrayal or betrayals may drive her crazier than she's already been acting every day, at least for now. You and your significant other, however, are not everybody. So that's something you can kind of not necessarily relax about, but this is something you need to chew on. Your relationship isn't everyone's relationship. Especially if you're listening to this podcast and you believe that you've got a chance, that you believe that there's a flame that can be rekindled, or maybe the emotional severance hasn't happened yet. Your relationship isn't everyone's. You definitely have time. You have to hold on to what made you both and your marriage special. I still believe that God can still use you to stoke the flames your marriage once had. The fires may take some time to start over, however. You got to understand that it's going to take some time, because what has happened is you've destroyed a level of trust. Very hard to get back. Very hard to reestablish. But if you're serious and you're willing to put in the time and commitment, then trust with you can be built. Now, whether your wife chooses to give you that trust or your husband chooses to give you that trust again, that is completely between them and God. And that's going to take some work on their end. But you have to first be through and through in your relationship a trustworthy person. You may be in some form of communication with your wife, or she is still willing to talk to you, but her trust in you is diminished. Perhaps she's giving you an ultimatum to change or get divorced. Maybe she has left the home and moved with a sister or a friend until things are a little more figured out. You know things may never be the same again, no matter what happens. So what can you do? Well, I'm going to tell you. You need to choose to be transparent with her. Transparency comes first. The season isn't about finding new ways to make old mistakes, so please do not waste your time. Instead, start being more upfront with yourself. If you are not happy in your relationship, let your wife know in what specific reasons you were not happy. Below is a list of areas most married men are unhappy about that their wives may have had no clue of. Ladies, if you're listening, pay attention to this. Fellas, if you're listening, pay attention to this. You guys may want to comment or add your own reasons below, but these are the ones that I've come across that seem to be pretty frequently skipped, missed, or misunderstood. So, number 1, his frustration over his career or his occupation and the future of it. Number 2, his sex life. Now I'm going to put a little bit more emphasis on this. Notice that I mentioned his sex life. Number 3, his cultural upbringing. What was his family like? What was his surrounding areas like? What was it like growing up in school? What was it, who were his friends when he was growing up? What was his experiences when he was growing up? Not to say that these things are your situation, but these are the things that influence the man you're with to being the man he is today. Number 4, his perception of his surroundings. Maybe he felt trapped. He feels trapped, or the life that he has is the best that he can do. And he feels that this is just the norm from where he's from. Number 5, his sense of power or control over his life and choices. To feel like he has no sense of direction, no sense of control over his life, a man mistakenly gives up control of a lot of things. So he'll do some of the dumbest things because he feels like as long as he's in control, he'll do it. This same thing that a prodigal spouse goes through. They will do and make terrible decisions, things that hurt the family because they believe that they're doing the right thing or they're doing something that makes them happy. They no longer want to be part of the rules. They want to bend the rules. They want to show that they can go to the limits without losing themselves. And oftentimes they forget that the choices they make affect everyone. Number 6, his desire to bring massive positive change to his world, but not knowing where to start. This pertains pretty much to men between their 20s and their 30s. A range of possibilities, a range of potential, a range of endless choices that he can make if only he would focus on one. But the world we live in is very fast moving. It's information packed. And, after school is over, there's no one to point you in that direction, or, at least not readily. It's not in there. It's not always in their face of somebody who wants to point them in the right direction and tell them what they need to do. Because in the world we live in, to stick with one choice, to stick with one person, to stick with one way of life, that's shunned upon. And we're told that you have to be good in all areas. You have to be the Mac in all areas. You have to be an alpha in all areas. And that's false. That was probably leading him astray. Number 7, his time slipping away from him. His time slipping away from him. Maybe he's getting older. He feels the age coming. Maybe certain women aren't paying attention to him. Maybe you're not paying attention to him. This is a conversation that ladies or men, if it's come down to that, it could be something as simple as that. It's time to have that conversation. Is he trying too hard to look younger than what he is? Is it, does he accept who he is in the stage of his life or his age range? Or is he trying to keep up with you? Is he trying to keep up with you? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way he's going about it. Does he feel like he needs to lose himself in order to keep up with his relationships? What if he only knew that as long as he took care of himself and his body, if he took care of his health, he would most likely enjoy longevity, a healthier lifestyle, and would look even more attractive, not only to you, but he would be attractive to himself. He would be attractive to opportunity, to luck, to even more blessings, Maybe he wouldn't look like where he's from, but he may be not too sure where to start. Number 8, he is getting revenge. That's a biggie. Especially when people don't understand, what could he possibly be getting revenge for? Or I don't care what he's getting revenge for. Well, I'm telling you now, he is getting revenge. Possibly. Maybe something happened that slighted him. Maybe he built up a certain level of resentment. And one way or another, it manifests itself. It may not be necessarily an affair, but does he snap when things, don't call for being snapped at? Is he dismissive? Does he cut you off during conversations? These are all very rude tactics, by the way. They're rude, but it's done by somebody whose mental state and their emotional state is jarred in some way without finding a way to handle them. And no, it's not your responsibility. These are just the possibilities of things that your marriage may have been facing. Fellas, this is a possibility of things that you may be going through that you haven't necessarily give too much thought on. And this list is just to illuminate some of the things that may be happening with you. There are a dozen more reasons for a married man to lower himself to an affair, but most reasons are not specifically because of his wife. Understand, most reasons that you may have cheated have nothing to do with your wife. I don't care what you're pointing at. There's nothing, if it's about her body, if it's about her the way she talks, if it's the way that she makes you feel, that's just the way you feel. The way she talks, that's just the way you hear things. If it is her, it's time to have those conversations, because if she is an adult, the woman that you are married to, the men that you're married to, if they're an adult, it's time to have an adult conversation, and one that invites real discussion, real dialogue. The devoted husbands that listen to this podcast, the devoted wives that chime in or listen into this podcast, my brothers and my sisters, you will need to make absolutely sure your husbands, your wives, or significant others hear your truth. I encourage you not to be in fear of allowing your truth to be heard and unpacked. If she is willing to talk about it, then she is willing and hoping to listen to you. Hold back nothing and show her that you are man enough to own a mistake. I sometimes wish more men and women understood the healing side effects of acknowledgement. This is something that me and my wife talked about. Acknowledgement. If only you would take a moment, women, men, if only you guys would take a moment to hear each other out, not to respond. Don't listen just to respond. Listen, hear, understand, and then ask questions that goes a little bit deeper, if possible or if necessary, about why your spouse felt the way that they do, about the actions that they do. Now, everybody ain't built for this, and this is just it's a personal journey. Everybody is not built for this, but I do understand this, and I've come to understand more based on this subject. If we are equipped, educated, we are aware of what's going on and how to deal with a certain situation, actually almost any situation. It's kind of like being a master mechanic. A master mechanic, whether he works on cars or maybe he works on military vehicles, or he works on bikes or anything like that, or she, because the world we live in, they're not thrown by basic oil changes. They're not thrown by tire changes. They're not thrown by, changing a quarter panel. They're not thrown by installing an engine. They're not thrown by installing glass and stuff like that. They're not thrown by that. You know who are thrown by big collisions and big jobs on cars? People who don't know anything about cars. And people who think they know about cars. Those are the ones who are thrown. That's how it is in a marriage and a relationship. We're dealing with people in general. You've dealt with enough people, or maybe you've dealt with a situation. You have learned about it. You've studied about it. You've talked to God. You've prayed over it, and you've allowed the answers to come to you. And you've been open and willing to seek out the rest of your answers. Acknowledgement, education, understanding is the key to dealing with whatever it is thrown your way. And from that point, you can decide whether you want to deal with those things in your relationship or not. And you're going to feel better about it no matter how it happens. Fellas, this is the same thing. If your cheating and your affairs are based over something that you've done all these above steps on, and you still feel like it can't work out, then have that conversation with your wife, your significant other, your spouse, and seek help if you're looking for help. But if you're not looking for help, then my advice is prepare for separation, because that will be most likely the only recourse. To acknowledge your relationship with God means you accept help in your darkest of days and accepted his lifeline when the world says they don't have time for you. It is a freeing stage to enter into and makes room for others to be loved the same way. You want to know if your wife will forgive you after an affair? My official answer: you won't know until you accept God's forgiveness for you first. In the meantime, God will melt your wife's hardened heart. I've learned two important things that standing husbands should keep in mind before being defeated in their marital restoration. Number one, you must lead by example every day in every way that you wish to be treated and respected. Number two, do not underestimate the depths of forgiving a devoted wife has in her heart. Remember, guys, God is still in control. Do not fret. Do not lose hope. Do not despair over what's happening in your marriage. Work on you. Open yourself up to the instruction and healing that God has for you. And work on your marriage and stand your ground. That wraps up for today's episode, you guys. If you would so please subscribe to the podcast, you can do so at www.tyrewilson.com. I upload. I can send you more free updates, resources, offers, anything else. And if you download our mobile site through Wix, I'll leave a link in the description for that as well. You can actually send me your messages and I can answer them for you even faster. This is it's a great resource for the podcast. It allows me to talk to you guys, faster than social media. It's faster than basically email. It comes right to my phone or my tablet, and I can answer you guys whatever questions or concerns or comments you have, and I can add it to the podcast if you like. I can answer your questions on the podcast if you like. It really helps the podcast grow. I want to thank you guys for being here, for listening, and being a subscriber and a follower. I want you guys to have a blessed day in the Lord, and I encourage you to try your best today.